Welcome to the Balance Sheet, where you rise above the noise and learn about the most important business issues of our age. I'm your host and fellow student, Conrad Chua. Joining us today is Raman Korneau. Raman left a 20-year career in traditional banking and consulting to launch myTU, a cutting-edge fintech company revolutionizing digital banking. Raman's vision for myTU is focused on financial inclusion using cloud-based technologies and AI to provide seamless, accessible services to markets across Europe. So, welcome, Raman.
Hello. Yeah. Uh,
Raman, what got you started to launch myTU?
um, so I started thinking about it back when I was at my executive MBA in Cambridge. Yeah. So I joined executive MBA in Cambridge as board member, CFO of a bank, and I started thinking about um, new banking, like changes in banks because until then I was like seeing a lot of banks, yeah, so the problems, and I believe that future is in technology, yeah. So I saw several examples, how technological banks develop quickly and provide very good services to clients, yeah. And also I saw like all the lacks and inefficiency of all banks. So I decided, why not? And so while in Cambridge, we kind of set up with my classmates, another company, yeah, which was more like capital markets. But it was my probably first entrepreneurial experience. Yeah, it didn't get well, so we earned something, then we lost everything, and then I was doing kind of some capital markets M&A advisory, yeah, and just put together a deck for a fintech bank and start looking for partners and investors. And somehow in 2018, it happens that I found like some interested investors who told, okay, let's do it. Yeah, we're ready to put this money. In 2019, I found my co-founder who is CTO. Yeah, and right now we are two person, like founders in this company. He is tech and I'm fin. Yeah, so we are kind of real fintech. Yeah, so and so far so good. Yeah, so we're let's keep developing. His experience also like probably the same as mine. Yeah, but he worked mostly in transaction building different like settlement system and for banks, financial institutions. And right now we're already for 5 years just building a new fintech. Yeah, fintech neobank.
And you told me that when you started myTU, you were thinking of providing fintech services to the travel industry. Was
Yeah,
that
yeah.
correct?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is a very interesting story. So, like the first deck was about travel industry, and I mean we're still working with travel industry. Yeah. But the first deck was just about it. Yeah. So the name of the company was Travel Union. Yeah, and so we launched the company in April 2019. So my partner started working on tech side and just creating the system, doing integration. I was mostly busy with submitting document for the license, marketing and other stuff. And and then this is the end of 2019, beginning of 2020. So the COVID started, yeah. So it was lockdown, COVID, and you can imagine none of VCs or like investor was interested in a deck, yeah, of a company which was called like Travel Union, because everybody just believed, travel is dead, yeah. So like it will never recover. Even we spent some time trying to show them, okay, so like 1 year, like 2 years, and everything will be recovered, and we will be well prepared. But people usually just make decision based on their like recent experience. Yes, they just. I mean, like this is my perception based on this time. Yeah, so we had to pivot. Yeah, so we renamed the company in myTU. Yeah, so which is My Travel Union. We left the logo the same, yeah, which is like suitcase. So we like initially we was thinking about, okay, creating like we already created the app for people, and creating like family services accounts for children. It was kind of like second step, but we switched to this. Yeah, so we just started position us as family banking, and this allowed us, to get some customers, to survive, to get some funding. But I mean, this was probably like the perfect experience. Why? Because when you had as a business, new business had a very difficult time in the very beginning. Yeah, so it's so the business is much stronger then. Yeah, so we kind of like survived. Yeah, so a big like shock in the very beginning. Yeah. So, and another point, this is probably was the reason why we start thinking about creating like super efficient bank. Yeah. So we start thinking about efficiency in IT, in products, like in everything. Yeah. And we understood that the efficiency could not be copied. Uh, so this is the way how we're developing. Yeah. So how we're creating our tech side, how we're developing our products.
We can talk a lot more about myTU and the kind of services and the learning along the way. And I just wanted to tell people who are watching this, if you've got any questions for Raman, please put them in the comments field. But Raman, before we go to the myTU, I'm really interested. What those years, just 2020, 2021 with COVID, it must have been really tough obviously tough for the company, but tough for you and your co-founder. How did you find that strength and resilience to keep going, keep at it? Were you tempted to just go back to corporate?
No, I mean like actually I didn't. Yeah. So I mean like I decided myself. Yeah. So then that I'm not going back to corporate. Yeah. Uh, Definitely. So it was very difficult, to raise some additional funds. Yeah. So we had to save on everything. But as explained, so we just at this time we invested a lot of time and like our efforts, yeah, in creating the technology, yeah. So and maybe when you kind of like look back, yeah. So at our experience, I mean, we had a chance to sit on somebody else technology, yeah. So on somebody else bank as a service, yeah. But because we wasn't able kind of to we didn't need to develop it very quickly, yeah, and invest a lot of money in marketing, we decided to create like very good technology, yeah. And we created our own core banking system, yeah. So like this cloud-based AI powered cloud like core banking system. And right now like we're kind of like almost 100% in-house IT development, yeah. And this is right now very significant competitive advantage, yeah. And this is what give us a lot of benefits in terms of efficiency right now compared to others.
I think it's good to get a question. I think this is from Yukino on LinkedIn. Yukino asks, how does myTU utilize AI or data analytics regarding customer spending patterns, budget management? How are these data used to improve services and create new value?
We use like in banking there are a lot of processes where you need to make decisions very like quickly, yeah. And before banks used different like scenarios analysis, yeah. And before like but the final kind of like decision or like all the difficult cases was analyzed and still analyzed in regular bank by people, yeah. So like compliance departments, like risk departments, and so on. So and we kind of managed to do a lot of our processes, yeah, and analysis through AI. So right now over 90% of transactions analysis are done through our um, um, like through AI, yeah, yeah, through this scenarios in AI. For example, uh, and all the transactions, it's a lot of like regulations. So you need to understand if it's like, for example, person who is sending, if he's sanctions, or money are sent to some sanctioned person. So if you need to understand if it's fraud. You need to understand if it's like, maybe it's like political expert person. And maybe it's like prohibited activities. So, and right now it's all kind of like very complicated, especially with the requirements for this, like fast transactions. So like in Europe, this is SEPA instant. And this is the reason why a lot of like European banks are still not implemented SEPA instant. So in our case, when we do analysis, so all the transactions are filtered through AI, and there are a lot of technologies we use just to understand, who sent. We use and like, so 90% transaction are filtered and go through without being stopped. But also 10% of transactions, when we have some suspicions, the system just filters them out, for manual review. And it's not just filter transaction out, and it's also collect all the necessary information for a person to make a decision. So in our case, a person just make decision. So let's say 10% of transaction filtered out. And people are sitting, they receive all the information about this transaction, based on which they may make a decision. Is it really some fraud or some sanctions? Or is it, let's say, just false positive? And the same we use, this is anti-money laundering. So we also use it in different KYC and QAB. So know your customers, know your client. So all people, like all the onboarding, both for individuals and for corporates, is done online. So when individual is onboarding, you need to check a lot of information. Is it like, because it could be like false account. So you need to compare like face of person to the documents. So you need to understand where from he is onboarding. You need to get all the information about this person, like, from social media and everywhere else. Is it like maybe some negative publicity, maybe sanction, everything. So the system doing all this. And in the end, and you need to do this very quickly. So so this is like the same with businesses. So businesses onboarding, based on, like, let's say, name of the business and number of the business, you need to get all the possible information from database and check, like what this business is doing, to check if it's the same what the person is declaring, and make a decision. So AI helps a lot, in many processes. And then, you need to check all the database, kind of like regularly based on risk analysis. So it's also done by AI. Also customer support. So we have some technologies. I mean, like this chatbots is a long, already like kind of a long story. So it's used for a long time. But translation, so we translate all the messages in language of people. Another point, so when for example our call center is talking to people, or answer through a chatbot, so the AI analyzing, is it maybe they kind of like emotional or rude, and they can switch off this person from our side. So I mean, it's there are a lot of small things, where you use AI, and we constantly increase in number of these things.
My question is, do the larger traditional financial institutions use AI like this?
I think they use, so they have to use. So where I kind of started my description, for example, so easy example, so right now a lot of larger financial institutions need to switch to instant SEPA transaction. So like all the transactions should go through instant SEPA instantly in Europe, and they have time until the end of 2025. And a lot of them, are still using regular SEPA, which has 3 or 4 clearance per day. Why is it do this? Because they are not able to analyze transaction simultaneously. Yeah, they need to check it. They need some time to check it. Yeah, why? It's because they need to either to change scenarios. Yeah, and they need to employ AI in these scenarios. And this is a problem because a lot of them are still sitting on old systems, sometimes programmed back in 2000, I don't know, in 90s. Yeah. So, I mean, like we use in regular banks. Yeah. I understand, what's the technology. Yeah. So and, uh, and this is a big problem. Yeah. To kind of like to merge, this old system and new AI. Yeah. And or how to create, separate units will do this. And this, when you're a big bank, you need to this is to make significant investment. Yeah, because you already have like a lot of transactions going through. This is so architecture is different, and it's like, sometimes to build is much easier than to rebuild. Yeah, so they need to rebuild it. Yeah, they have something they need to rebuild, and this is significant investments. And this is our like beneficial. This is opportunity for fintechs. Another point here is so old banks, they have very large AML and compliance departments. Yeah, so you have a lot of people who is doing some work. You are paying some money. You have like some labor law, and you are not able to lay off them. Yeah, so they need them to like to keep doing something. So and kind of they have both this kind of like problems. Yes, so old systems, and a lot of people which who needs to do something, or you need to reform somehow your, and this create a lot of difficulties for a lot of them, just to jump to new technologies and to start using AI. And I believe like if bigger banks, they have enough like fundings, yeah, and to do this. So smaller and like medium banks, a lot of them they will just go away from the market. So we're kind of like where as fintechs, yeah, neobanks, we kind of like keep pushing them out of the market. Yeah.
So Pedro says that some of these old banks are still using 1970s mainframes. Hopefully, Pedro is not quite of that vintage. But
So
I thought this other comment from Christopher, where he says innovation is not always radical, but it could have this major impact. Because, as you say, Raman, AI is as a technology, anybody can use it, but there are all these existing
yeah,
barriers, and it's about how do you go about
yeah,
innovating. What is your thoughts,
yeah.
about innovation in fintech, and how can fintechs innovate?
There's like so like my experience is 20 years, yeah, in regular banking, and with regular banks. And I mean, like banks always need to innovate. Yeah, so this is a point. And why? Because it's a lot of fraud. You need to protect from fraud, and people kind of like fraudsters are innovating against you. Yeah, so you need to comply. Yeah, so uh, so and another point, so you have like some new comers like we, yeah, which are also like innovate and pushing you out of the market. Yeah, so like kind of life pushing you to innovate. Otherwise, you just lose your market share and go away from the market. And banking, quite interesting market because so you need to be licensed, yeah, so you need to be approved by a regulator, yeah, so and you need to be trusted, yeah, so banking is a business of trust, so it takes time to get a license and to get trust. So like barriers to enter this business are quite high. And this is the reason why a lot of old banks still exist, and they may use like 97s like systems and so on, because they have they're long on the market, they're trusted, and they still have a lot of funds. Yeah. So, and it's difficult, to come to the market with a couple of million and try to fight, multi-billion, bank. Yeah. But time goes, and like customers are getting like to new fintechs, because like much easier services. Yeah. So security is much higher. Even like some people believe, the bank is some place with, like safe and gold and money inside. Yeah. So all is about technology.
Thanks. But yeah, and I just wanted to show that Tom Britton on LinkedIn says Professor Jaideep Prabhu, who teaches here in Cambridge, actually wrote a book about innovation. So that's worth reading as well. Raman, maybe if you could tell us a bit about the customer sect that myTU serves, whether it's customers or businesses, what do they look like and what's the size
Yeah.
of myTU?
Yeah. And so we start with B2C mobile banking. Yeah. So this is our like main product at the moment. Yeah. We have our mobile banking app. So right now we have around 50,000 of customers. Yeah. And so we are growing around 2,000 customers monthly. Yeah. So new customers are joining. And we have quite good rate of usage. So like 43% of customers are using us on monthly basis. Yeah, which is very good. So we have mobile banking, which is our own development. So this is written on Google. Sorry, I forget the technology. Yeah, Google Flutter. Yeah, so it's different from others. Yeah, very nice UX. So we also have family banking. As I mentioned, we have mobile banking for children. Yeah, and all the like necessary right now functions in our mobile banking. Yeah, so cards. Yeah, we have 16 languages. We have like you can send, receive money, budgets, like everything. Yeah. So we also have a marketplace with a loyalty system in our mobile banking, and with coupons or subscriptions from our partners, and with their ads as well. This is kind of like mobile banking, our retail product. So we have regular corporate accounts. Yeah. So it's both on mobile and online. Yeah. So kind of regular business banking. Yeah. So API, like SEPA accounts, transfers, like everything you can expect. Yeah. So like different QR code payments and so on. We also have different payment solutions for businesses. So we call them payment as a service. Yeah. So this is different APIs which businesses which make a lot of payments, yeah, or receive money from customers or from clients, they use. For example, our payment APIs are used by consumer credit companies. Yeah, so they are doing payouts, yeah, thousands of payouts daily to their customers, and they just receive money, like repayment of these loans from the customers. We're working with some merchants which receive money through our APIs, yeah, to their accounts. Yeah, so this is like, well, I mean, like very secure, yeah, and very convenient for them. And this business growing quite fast right now. So soon we plan to introduce travel now, pay later loans, yeah, because we travel and we have a lot of travel partners working with us. And I mean, like other interesting products, yeah, like cards acquiring and so on. So at the moment we have like 3 categories of clients, yeah. So retail customers, regular corporates, and payments as a service, yeah. And loans are coming soon. So we plan to launch to make soft launch of loans in December this year.
You mentioned that you're going to be introducing loans soon, and Christopher on LinkedIn says some of the problems with credit allocation is banks who you have built-in bias. Their data algorithms sometimes have this bias against people and businesses of color. What are your thoughts about how financial services can be more equitable and more accessible?
Oh, I mean, this is a very good question. Yeah. So let me find the slide. Yeah. So okay, this is our new deck. So at this moment, we are working with um, mm, we have as our clients, yeah, people with 120 passports. Yeah. So we are working like with a lot of like customers, and um, why it's happening, yeah. So I think like the problem with regular banks, yeah, so they are not able to control risk properly, yeah, and they already have a database, yeah, of clients with whom they can work, yeah, so quite secure, safe database, and they don't go to risky categories of clients, and this is a problem, and this is probably a niche, where all like these new banks and fintechs, kind of like entering the market. So if to analyze our retail customers database, so I would say around 30% of our clients are families with kids, yeah, probably around another like 30% are like travelers, so people who use our like services traveling somewhere because we have very good exchange rate, probably the best, yeah, and so the rest are people who like migrants, yeah, so coming from different other countries, and um, or just traveling within the European Union, yeah, and kind of like digital nomads, yeah. So we work with them, yeah, and we understand, because of good technology, we understand how to control the risk, yeah, related to these people, and uh, this is our niche. This is where we develop and where we get good revenue, and this is a niche not just taken by old banks, yeah. So we all start from there, or each new bank kind of like working with so-called unbanked, yeah, and then develop, go to other customers, yeah.
Yeah,
So
I read that because myTU is mobile, pretty much mobile born, mobile first, mobile native. It's used by a lot of economic migrants within
yes.
Europe, and of course, in the last couple of years, there's been a lot of waves coming in from Ukraine, I
Yeah.
think Belarus, and is that something that you consciously wanted to develop, or did it start to gain traction because of the qualities of the myTU offering?
I mean, we from the beginning we understand, this is a good market. Yeah, so you need I mean, you need to find a niche, yeah, where you're solving a problem for a client. Yeah, so when you kind of European living somewhere and having your bank, it's very difficult to find a like problem which you have with the bank. Yeah, I mean, convenient bank is okay, yeah. So maybe children accounts is also okay, yeah. But we need to spend a lot of money for advertisement, to assure you that this is exactly our product you need to use for your children. And another point, so children is you need to trust us, yeah. And when we are just a new entrant to the market, you kind of say yes, so you try to sell my data or data of my children, so it's very difficult to start onboarding and to assure like persons that they need to switch or to open account with you. So, and these customers was very expensive from the very beginning. But in case of migrants, we are solving a problem, yeah. So a person coming to another country and they need to open account, and in many cases they don't want to go somewhere, yeah, so to any bank, they need to do it online, yeah. And here we are, yeah, and we have very low fees. So right now we take so account is just for free, and when you order a card, it's just €1 a month, that's it, yeah. So very flat fee because of our efficiency. So this is what we're doing, yeah. So and in 2022, we help a lot. We open a lot of accounts for Ukrainians, who just going from their country with the war to Europe, who escaped, and also right now there are a lot of like migrants, from Eastern Europe, also like from Belarus or from Russia even, So there are a lot of like IT developers, So even like some companies relocated all their stuff, And
Okay.
this was quite a good news. Onboarded like all the employees, So we have quite a lot of these IT companies who are relocated, for example, from Belarus or from Russia.
Yeah. On Shubham has a question about credit. So, when providing solutions such as credit analytics for B2B using AI, creating, I think, probability of default risk models, where do you get the data from to create these models or products?
Oh, I mean, like here we cooperate with our partners, So which there are a number of companies which for a long time they collect this information, so like credit bureaus and so on, and we cooperate. We get this information, and so there are some profiles of customers. So based on profile, we can, kind of like understand what category of customer we have. And also, as I mentioned, so we have AIs in our technology, so we can get all the like social media and other information about this client, so it's not a problem.
Yeah.
So we categorize the client, and based on this, like categorize it in some category of risk, and based on this information make decision what amount of loans and how long can be provided.
You mentioned having services for kids, right? And I think I don't have my kid does not have a myTU account, but I read that you provide statistics that children can look and see and understand their finances. What is important in like for parents to teach their children about financial literacy?
Um, because kids need to understand what's money, So how to spend, and where money coming from, So how to earn. I mean, we had even like some lessons, even like in schools and in kindergartens, to teach. And the earlier you introduce your kids to money, so the better. I mean, it's not like you providing some cash, So here a kid have an instrument. For example, you may do like, let's say, weekly top-ups of his account. This is what I'm doing with my daughter, and she may spend it, or may save it. So she may have like savings account, for something, and she has also analytics of her spendings. She may understand, okay, I spent here too much, this is a problem. And so a kid have mobile bank, so like a kid understand, how where money is coming from and how money is spent, like you have an instrument, for analysis, and this is very good. The earlier the better. It was some time when, for example, my daughter was 7 years old, and she used just a card and didn't understand, didn't touch app a lot, and for her it was like a magic, so she has a card, and card can pay, everything. So it was like cases when she paid for the whole class, for lunch, but then, like getting older, she understands, okay, money are coming from somewhere, so here's an app, and like, so it's not like like some magic card, which can settle everything. So it's a good lesson for kids.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm still trying to get my daughter to understand the power of compounding. Right? The most, I think Einstein said it was the greatest power in the universe.
Yeah.
And Pedro asked, what's the key differentiator between myTU and GoHenry, which also caters for children? I don't know if you're
Well,
familiar with
like the
GoHenry.
main differentiator, I would say, so we charge zero for kids. Kids are for free. So I know the GoHenry charge some fees for to children. So in our case, kids are for free. This is because our efficiency. So we can allow it. So we are kind of like growing our customers. I mean, like GoCanary is mostly UK, so we are mostly working in Europe. So this is also difference. So if so, we have like probably like similar functionality, but we are for free. Yeah. So this is like the main difference.
You mentioned that you got three big customer segments. There's the individual consumers, there's businesses, but you're also looking at payment as a service. Can you tell us a bit more about what is payment as a service and what is the market potential there?
So this is again about our differentiation and like new technologies for and using like new technologies. Yeah. So there are a lot of businesses. Yeah, and they need to make payments. And with an old bank, for example, your consumer credit company, yeah, you need to make like regular every day you make thousands of payments, yeah, providing loans, and you also need to collect and collect money to your account, and you need to get all this information through your system. So in one case with the old bank, you need to open account, make these payments, put through. This is very difficult. And if you create like very convenient API, yeah, which allows to integrate our like technology in your like system, yeah, so this is like very like good benefit for a company, because company can make this payments through their like financial system, yeah, and they can see through their financial system who pay to them, and they get this information immediately, not just in the end of the day. And so this is like we're solving problem for these companies, and we're selling the services. Simple.
And one thing that you mentioned was how the advantage for myTU is that you built your own IT infrastructure. But that
Yeah.
wasn't, am I right? That wasn't always the case, that you had thought
No,
about
it
outsourcing.
was no, it was always the case. Yes, it was always the case. I mean, initially with my co-founder, with CTO, was analyzing how to run this business. Yeah, and we had several options to start this business on somebody else bank as a service, and maybe because of COVID, yeah, maybe because we kind of had some time, yeah, so to create something, maybe because my co-founder was very experienced, and he felt power to create something like completely different from what he's seen on the market. But he decided, yeah, and we kind of agreed to create our own core banking system. And I think this was one of the key solutions. And initially we used more service providers, yeah, integrating in our system. But we're developing, we're getting scale, and we start working more and more, just creating some more functions within our system. And all this about efficiency. So like right now, why it's important, yeah. So first of all, like this is super innovative, yeah, system. So it's cloud-based, so AI powered, yeah. So if we had like my co-founder on the phone on this call, yeah, so he would tell a lot about it, yeah. So because I'm Finn, he's tech, yeah. So but I'm kind of touching his side as Finn can do, yeah. So describing the tech side. So we use modern technology, and like from my side, this is like the most important speed of to the market. For example, if we decide, okay, let's change the onboarding flow, yeah, because or let's move one button to other point, like place, yeah. So we can do it like within 1 week, yeah, within a couple of hours, yeah. And when you're working with some other bank, like bank as a service providers, so you would need probably several months to do this. So and this is our competitive advantage from one side. From another side, we created a system which is super efficient, yeah. So for you to understand, like we spend for the system less than 1,000 a month, yeah. You can imagine. So banking system with like different services, different customers, we spend for all the infrastructure less than 1,000 a month. And So we can do more than 10,000 onboarding per day, and this is limited by a service provider for recognition of documents, yeah, which we use, because like so our partner is limiting this 10,000 because we can do more, and we can have whatever number of accounts. And another point, we are super secure, yeah. Yeah, so this is the point. We use Google Cloud Spanner platform for our action is you input in the database, so it's kind of integrated through the database immediately, so you can see it like from wherever. Yeah, so like for example, transaction made in Europe, and you can see immediately it's in US. Yeah, so database is synchronized immediately. So, and this is new technology. This is how we use it, new technology.
Great. So, Raman, very quickly, lightning question. What is the future for myTU?
Okay. I mean, right now we it's like from different angles. Yeah. So like from regulatory angle, definitely we already have electronic money institution and we have consumer credit license. So like the next step is to get banking license and to become a bank. Yeah. In terms of clients, to keep grow and develop. Yeah. So like to keep developing and increase number of clients. In terms of revenue profitability, we like 3 months before getting operational break even. Yeah, so I think we will get operational break even in December, and profitability I think somewhere like in the first like maybe beginning of the second quarter of the next month. Yeah, so like I have like different in terms of people. We with my partner we decided we will grow as a bank. We will never have more than 100 people as our employees. Yeah, so this is like right now we have 25. Yeah.
Okay, great stuff. So, thank you, Raman, so much for telling us about this exciting entrepreneurial journey of yours, and also for how myTU is helping finance become more accessible, inclusive, and ultimately cheaper for everybody. And thank you all to our viewers as well. The balance sheet will be back on the 25th of October, 12:45 p.m. UK time. We will have Professor Nareen Lalafarian, who will talk about one of the fastest growing segments in finance right now, which is private credit. So till then, stay safe and we'll see you next time.